When I was about 20, the world was in total turmoil, politics of racism and, which even spilled over into the Vietnam War. And I looked around at the world, especially I looked around at America and said, this isn't the country that I was taught, that I was raised in. I know that may sound strange to some of you now, because, you've grown up in an age where there's, for the last, how many years we've been constantly at war. But in my day, when I was young, we thought war was a very special, unfortunate occasion that we only engaged, to defend some higher truth. Turns out the highest truth war defends is profitability. But that's another discussion. In this time period, I was in turmoil from it all, and was a great, my profound good fortune that I discovered yoga, that it landed in my life, and I actually got it that I needed to practice it. I got it because when I did it, it was the first time in my entire life that I actually connected with my body and it felt good. So going forward from that turmoil, there was one mindset that I understood that I needed to connect to and hold. And the simplest way I can express it to you is that I understood that I had to live my life every day with a great deal of faith and patience. Faith and patience. And faith is, letting go of any distress, and looking for that simple, and holding that simple good feeling that arises out of connecting to our bodies and our breath. It can be ecstatic at times, but it doesn't have to be ecstatic, and it's not dramatic, it's simple. And breathing into that simple space that is beyond tension and beyond anxiety and beyond confusion isn't that I became perfectly clear. I was absolutely unclear. But I ceased to struggle with my lack of clarity. I stopped wrestling with my confusion. I didn't get tangled up in my angst. I simply established myself in the nicest, kindest, softest, good feelingest place I could find in myself, and I held that space moment by moment. And patiently waited for the fog to dissipate. Faith and patience. Something we all need to cultivate, faith and patience. Faith, of course that sounds a little bit like a religion. Faith in what? I grew up Catholic, as I have pretty much confessed to you all over and over again. I think confession is supposed to purge you of some sin, and I must be clear of the sin of Catholicism by now. Faith arose in me from the experience of the change that happened in my practice. I felt the state of my muscles change. I felt the state of my entire body change. I felt the state of my heart change. I felt the weight on my heart dissolve. As I found my breath and cultivated that experience, I felt my heart become bigger and bigger. And in the awakening and expansion of my own heart, I found peace and joy. And that peace and joy, in that state of peace and joy, I started to understand more about who I was, and I started to experience what I was capable of. Opportunities came to me to express my capacity, and as I engaged those opportunities with as much faith and patience as I could. And taking each opportunity one moment at a time, step by step, not becoming entangled again in my confusion or my insecurities or my tensions or my imaginary fears, I stepped forward, step by step with faith and patience that the light of my own life, which I experienced within myself unfolding, would lead me to an increasingly finer place. And it has. I can say to you with total conviction, it has. And then that faith and patience, sort of moves toward in the expressing of my capacities, really allowed me to find respect for my fellow humans, even people whom I disagree with completely, to find respect for humanity and to see in people that same light living that is alive in me. And that gave me the opportunity to really stop, trying to impose my idea of the world on my own life and on everybody else's life, and really start to allow myself to appreciate and learn from all the experiences that I was having, which of course I would have never had if I hadn't had some faith and patience in the first place. And that respect has matured into love, and that love has grown very deep into a kind of, cooperation and sharing that endures over decades and is increasingly beautiful. And how amazing. And even now, I don't have any answers for anything. And I don't want to have any answers for anything. I feel like, the need to have answers is the need to limit the possibility that you're living with. Because as soon as you have an answer, then you impose it on your outside. And, that becomes a story. When the story's always bullshit, if we could hold that space of faith and patience and walk with that openness with one another, step by step, respecting the people we walk with, what an amazing world this would be. If we could see in, everyone, the divine light, if you want to put it that way, shining, and see and experience with everyone our total interconnectedness, it would transform completely our view of the world. And our simple effort to reel our minds back from all their confusion and the anxiety into a simple place of faith and patience and a simple willingness to share. That simple faith and patience and willingness to share becomes a profound transformation in our vision of what life, who we are and what life is, and what the heck we're doing here. the simple spark within us becomes a fireworks display. Every day I wake up and I don't know if I should read the news or not. You know, it's like every day it's more bizarre out. But I can't really worry too much about the world. It's always been a little bit bizarre. You know, when I was in high school, you know, the police in Alabama were shooting, I mean, they're still shooting black people, but they were shooting them, you know, without video cameras and turning dogs on them, and there were lynchings, and it was awful. And the Vietnam War was, you know, what it was. And every other war we've been in since then has been the same. I can't worry about that, and there's nothing I can do about it, but I can bring peace and joy to my own heart and extend to the people whom I share my life with. And that's not a small number of people, as it turns out. You know, the simple peace and joy that I find within myself that has transformed us from, you know, over and over and over and over again, from Bloomington, Indiana to here, to wherever is next. I encourage you to think about faith and patience. Not faith in a religious sense. It's not like faith in God. Well, and you know, unless we define God as the breath of life which has animated this tissue that you're wandering around this world in. Within each of us, there is unimaginable possibility, unimaginable. And the first step, and the next 20 steps to the realization of that unimaginable possibility begins with faith and patience. Faith in yourself and patience that you will be guided from within yourself to the finest possible place you can be. Namaste.